Hey guys, it's Sylvia from Backyard Brushes in historic Fountain City, Wisconsin. And in today's video, it's all about using Sonnet's Garden Blooms May Maker's Box to turn other people's junk into my treasures. So let's roll up our sleeves and let's get creating. First, from the Painted Photographer, we have a Nestled in Time, and we also have our Garden Wakes rice papers, followed by the Floral Medley Masterboard and the Le Fleur de Guide by Roycycled Treasures decoupage paper. First, we have DIY Sandy Blonde and DIY Prom Queen. We have Fusion Peony, and we also have Fusion Little Star. And I apologize, I forgot the Artichoke by Sweet Pickens. We got this pretty napkin as a thank you from Sonnet, along with a thank you card, which is in every box. So for project one, I'm going to use a tin metal galvanized pocket planter that I picked up at the Goodwill, I think for $2.99, maybe $3.99. After reading Connie from the Painted Photographer's blog this past week, I am mixing DIY cake batter and Little Black Dress. And the cake batter is going to kind of downplay the black, take some of that brightness out. And I'm just going to mix up the paints to give a full coverage to the galvanized tin. And I just poured colors together. I didn't measure them out, as you could probably see. And now I'm just making sure that I mix the paint really well. And it does kind of tone down that black. It's almost like a deep, deep charcoal gray. Using the paint, I'm just going to cover the surface of the galvanized pocket. I don't really know what to call it. And I am going to leave a little space where that B is. Now, the B is actually not raised, so I didn't have to worry about taking the B off the tin, the galvanized metal. So I know it'll cover up fairly easily. I'm not even worried about it. So after I covered the galvanized tin, I just took some chalk paint, white from Rust-Oleum, and I just covered up where that B is in the center of the pocket of the galvanized tin. I'm using the white paint as a background to where I will later adhere the rice paper. And just having that white as a background just kind of brightens up the paper and the final project. I apologize, my phone actually died and I didn't realize it. I was just working so hard. But I mixed up some salt wash, and it's just 1 part salt wash to 1 part water. I didn't really, measure precisely. And I just mixed it up into a thick paste, and it dries rather quickly. And I just randomly globbed on the salt paste randomly over the galvanized tin. It didn't take long for the salt wash paste to dry. I'm using the Prom Queen by DIY, which is actually a really beautiful soft blue. It's kind of like a baby blue. And I covered the whole tin over the salt wash and the black. Using my finger sander, I just lightly distressed, and I especially went over the dried salt wash where it was under the paint, and the paint didn't adhere to the paint underneath, as the salt wash act as kind of like a blocking agent. So I just randomly went around and lightly sanded the galvanized container over the light blue. Using the wet distressed method, I just wet my paintbrush, went around one of the pictures of the nestled in time, and I just gently ripped the picture, which also gave me kind of a jagged, rough edge, which with the distressing, I really like. Rice paper is a little more durable than decoupage paper, so it can be easier to tear. Using DIY liquid patina, I'm going to adhere the rice paper to the metal pocket. You can use your favorite decoupage medium. I just tend to have less wrinkles when I use the liquid patina. So I'm just going to lightly give the white square, white rectangle, a coat of the liquid patina and place my paper down. Fortunately, rice paper is really forgiving once it does touch the decoupage medium, that you can actually move it around and place it until you find where you like it. Once I adhere the picture to the wall pocket, I'm going to use liquid patina and seal it over the top to help protect the rice paper from ripping. Using clear wax by DIY, I am just going over all of the blue, the prom queen, and around the edges of the decoupage paper to seal the paint. DIY is a clay-based paint and it does need sealing. Otherwise, if it gets wet, it can reactivate. Next, I'm going to use the dark wax by DIY and just kind of randomly, well, not randomly, I'm just going to go over the whole blue and rub that wax in, hoping that the clear wax helps buffer the darkness of the wax. Using a paper towel, gently rubbing off the dark wax as it has helped settle into the distressed and crevices of the metal planter. I did get my salt wash from Connie at The Painted Photographer, and if you haven't signed up for her blog or her weekly emails, I highly suggest it, as she gives a lot of really good tricks and tips. The dark wax also adhered nicely to the ripped edges of the rice paper, giving it a nice vintage distressed look that blended nicely into the metal planter. Project 2 in this video is definitely one of my favorite projects. I picked up a pair of boots in the ladies department at the Goodwill for $5.99, and I gave it a coat of white paint. I then went in with one section and used DIY liquid patina and covered the section of the boot I wanted to decoupage. I then let it dry. Using the napkin in our maker's box, I used a little liquid patina on my fingers. Napkins are usually always 2 to 3 ply. I just put the liquid patina on my fingers so it's tacky, and then I just kind of smush the corner with my fingers and the napkin peels right off. After the liquid patina has dried, I place my napkin over the area I'd want to decoupage with the dried liquid patina. I place a piece of parchment paper on top of the napkin. I have a Cricut heat press, a little mini one, and there's also off-brand ones you can buy off Amazon. And using the highest setting, I just gently pressed the napkin onto the boot I believe the liquid patina kind of melts into the matte napkin. I'm not sure the whole process. And it just adheres right to the boot. I then go over the area that's decoupaged onto the boot with some liquid patina. As it dries, I use a scissors and I kind of cut around the edges of the napkin. Grabbing my finger sander, I just use the up and down motion and I sand the napkin that's not decoupaged onto the boot right off. It separates really easily. Just make sure to go up and down and not sideways. I then use the liquid patina, and I didn't get a really good shot and camera, to adhere the napkin using the same process to the toe of the boot. And I also do the same process with the tongue of the boot. And again, I just use that finger sander to take the excess napkin right off. And half of the napkin is all I used to complete my boot with the side, the tongue, and the toe of the boot. Using Fusion Paint Peony, I painted the heel and the sides of the boot, and I did leave the white around the edges, separating the pink from the napkin, and I also left the heel white. Since I'd used the white paint over the brown leather of the boot, the pink was really soft and subtle, and I didn't have any of that brown shining through or bleeding through. The white just really helped make that pink pop. Still using Peony by Fusion Paint, I just gently went around the little metal shoelace, I don't know, frames, the shoelace rings, just to add a little color and to help pop the shoe where the shoelaces go. Fusion paint is a mineral-based paint that does not need to be sealed when complete. It's self-sealing. However, I did decide to use Big Top by DIY, and I sealed the whole shoe in Big Top so that it would have a uniform satin seal to it. After the shoe dried, I cut a piece of lace in white that was the same size of the original shoestring I took out, and I laced up my boot. I then grabbed a jar from the kitchen, placed it inside the boot, and I will now use it as a vase for my mom for Mother's Day. Well, since I have another pair to the boot, the other shoe, I did paint the area de decoupage with white and then some liquid patina. Using the DIY prom dress, I painted the toes and heels of the boot. Once the DIY blue prom dress dried, I used the DIY sandy blonde and I just went around all the brown that was remaining. Using the liquid patina, I just filled in those edges and gave the boot a coat of the liquid patina where I wanted to place the rice paper. I worked in sections to make sure and ensure the rice paper was adhered in place and with full coverage. The rice paper was a little bit trickier though than the napkin, and I did have to hold it down and in place a little bit more than I did the napkin. I also used the parchment paper and the iron to adhere the rice paper, and that worked a lot better using that exact same method I used with the napkin than just applying the rice paper to the shoe in sections. I went over the rice paper again with the liquid patina, sealing the paper onto the boot. Using a scissors, I trimmed the paper around the areas in which it was adhered to the boot and sanded the excess off. I used the clear wax by DIY and I gave the whole boot a covering. That way the DIY paint was sealed. Using Fusion Espresso Bean Brown Wax, I decided to go around the whole boot, hoping to get kind of that grungy vibe. And I just placed that brown wax right on top of the clear wax. I also used the exact same method on the other side of the boot, and I rubbed that wax right on top of that rice paper. It had already previously been sealed by DIY liquid patina and the clear wax, and now it's getting a coat of the brown wax. I used a paper towel just to gently rub off all the excess wax. I then used a cream colored lace and I laced up the boot. I did use painter's tape at the end of the lace to make it easier to go through the eye holes. I also placed a little ball jar inside the boot so that it too can be used as a vase or to hold artificial flowers. Project 4, I had picked up this little stool at the Goodwill. I love little stools. They flip really easy and they sell well. So to get rid of this 80s vibe, I did take it to the garage and I used the electric sander. Then using some white linen Rust-Oleum paint, I gave the whole stool a good covering. Using the white paint, it helps mask that deep maroon that I could not get off with the sander before applying the yellow paint. Using DIY Little Star, I covered the whole sides, bottoms, and edges of the stool. Since I used the white base first, I did not need a second coating of the yellow paint, and I had zero issues with bleed through from the maroon. I ripped off a section of Royce's masterboard. And what you don't see is I actually gave the paper a light mist before applying it to the stool. Using liquid patina, I'm going to start in the left side. I usually work left to right since I'm right-handed. Keeps my right elbow out of my project. And I apply the liquid patina evenly as I adhere the rice paper. After the rice paper is adhered, I just go around with the scissors and I trim off the excess, leaving probably about a half an inch to a centimeter around the edges. Using my finger sander, using an up and down motion, not horizontal, the decoupage paper trims off really nicely. I did have a little bit of some scuff marks from the hand sander or the finger sander. So I just stressed a little bit more of the whole stool. And now I'm going to go over the whole stool with DIY white wax. I'm just using a paper towel to remove the excess wax as it helps fill in all the crevices. And I use that same process over the whole stool using the white wax. Little Star was pretty bright, and using the white wax helped tone down some of the brightness. Using liquid patina, I went over the top of the stool to seal the decoupage paper. For the fifth and final project, I had picked up a cutting board. This is just a bamboo cutting board from Goodwill. I think I paid like $2.99 for it. Using a baby wipe, I am staining the wood with weathered wood by DIY. Using the baby wipe method, I just go with the grain of the wood and I stain the board or the wood just like I would if I was using a stain. However, you have much more variety of colors to use when using paint to stain your wood. You get to see the wood grain, it doesn't smell, and it dries really quickly. I never use wood stain anymore. Or I should say I hardly use wood stain anymore. I mixed up some of the avocado Sweet Pickins milk paint. Starting in the center, I just used a dry brush to lay on, well, the center thicker coating, and then I just kind of lightly used my brush to spread the paint out to the sides, giving it more of a distressed look without actually having to distress it. The avocado milk paint did take 2 coats, especially in the center. It was a little darker than I had anticipated, so I scrapped my original idea with the decoupage paper, and I grabbed some light colored IOD transfers that I still had, and I used the rub-on method and applied the IOD transfers. If you can apply a little kid's rub-on tattoo, you can easily apply an IOD transfer. It is that easy, just as long as you make sure that the paint is dry before you apply the transfer. After adhering the transfer, using Big Top by DIY, I sealed the project. I also used D-rings on the back of the cutting board so that the final project could be hung as a picture. And also, using the DIY Big Top as a sealer, it really did help brighten up the wood tones and the paint. So, what do you guys think? Which project was your favorite? Definitely the napkin on the boot was kind of a shocker for me. I did throw the pink roses on it and used it as a gift for my mom for Mother's Day. Let me know which project you liked best. And if you found this video inspirational, please hit subscribe below and follow me along on my creative journey. Thank you.